All right, guys, welcome to episode 18 of the VT Roundtable. We got a lot to get to tonight, but first, I want to apologize for being absent last week. We had some internal things going on. We're working on a new website, as a lot of you guys know, so that kind of took me away from it a little bit, allowed me to make some progress on that front. But we got a lot to get to tonight. We're going to talk about hope and purple Kool-Aid and how optimistic everybody's feeling about the season as we kind of get closer to training camp. And then we're gonna talk about some of the riskiest offseason moves the Vikings have made. And then if we have enough time, we're gonna take some Twitter questions that we received the past couple days and get to those. But real quick, first I wanted to give another shout out to everyone that purchased the VT shirts over the past couple weeks. We featured the Disgusting Act t-shirt. We had the I Bleed Purple t-shirt that we showed off last week. This time we got another one. We haven't talked about this one on the show yet, but it's the Donut Club t-shirt. So I'm sure if you're a Vikings fan, you know about the Vikings Donut Club. They have their own official version. So we kind of tried to spice it up a little bit, throw a little purple frosting on it. And so that's available on Amazon. If you dig it, there's going to be a link in the description. And any money that we get from those t-shirts, it just goes to reward these guys here and to keep some Domino's pizza for Drew. We got to make sure we're feeding him over there.
Little Caesars.
Oh, nuh-uh.
It's hit Domino's.
Oh, did I accidentally? Oh, he's muted. That sucks. You're muted, Drew. Or we're having technical difficulties or something.
Hello, I'm here now.
Oh,
Yes, please say Little Caesars in the future.
Yeah, my bad.
Instead of Domino's.
My bad. I know we have our sponsorship at risk now because of that mishap. But
Yeah, come on now.
my bad. So anyway, also quick shout out to all the people leaving comments. We usually talk about it at the end of the episode, but I really appreciate, and I know these guys do too, everyone leaving comments, because that's how we can make the show better, and we respond to every one of them. So if you have any of your own questions, any sort of feedback or anything, leave that in the comments, and we'll always make sure to respond. So anyway, real quick, jumping right into the show, let's get started. First things first, we're going to talk about Michael Floyd. I know it's something no one really wants to talk about, so we're going to make it super quick, but I just feel like we talked about it last episode, and since we didn't record it last week, there's kind of been some developments on that front, and I think it's probably important we just update real quick in case people weren't aware of what's been going on. So can anyone offer that brief update really quick? I feel like I've just been talking a lot. Austin, can you kind of like give a brief overview of what's happened since last time with Michael Floyd?
Sure. I mean, I was away, but from what I read and from what I saw, he got, and anyone correct me if I'm wrong, but he got 1 day of jail time for breaking the rules of his house arrest, and then the Vikings actually defended his drinking of kombucha and came to his side and said, we encourage our players to drink kombucha. So I think that's a turn of events. I didn't expect the team to come out and say that they supported it or they encouraged it and that was the reason. I didn't really know what to make of it, kind of from the outside looking in. But those are the updates that I saw.
Right, and so I also think it's important to note that, like, so I think he's finished his house arrest, right? Because he had to spend a day in jail, and then he had like 5 days left on his house arrest, so he's officially done with that. I think the only thing outstanding is basically just kind of the pending NFL suspension. And I know it was hinted at that was going to be 2 days prior to all of this kombucha stuff. It's probably, I would guess, probably going to be in the 4 range now. That would be my personal guess. But I do think it's interesting because I don't think any of us had predicted that this is how it would play out. I think a lot of us kind of, or maybe BJ and Drew, maybe you guys were kind of holding out hope, but I think the rest of us kind of just assumed that this was going to be the end of Floyd's time with the team. And it looks like he's almost definitely going to be on the team at this point, I would guess.
I think the one reason I held out hope is just because the Vikings didn't cut him right away after this whole thing, and as I waited for it to play out, it's kind of one of those things where he should have been on his last straw. So the fact that they didn't take action right away, kind of thought, well, this might be a fishy situation where maybe he's not completely at fault like we initially thought.
Yeah, I think it's a good point. We should
That's
also say,
exactly where I'm at too.
yeah. We should also say Austin and I had the chance to try kombucha last weekend.
And it's disgusting.
It's awful, in case you
It's
guys
terrible.
were wondering. I don't know if you saw our picture on Fremont Street, but we took some kombucha down to Fremont Street to get real crazy while he was here in Vegas.
crazy.
And we probably had like 3 sips of it maybe. And I accidentally got some on my fingers and I had to like go wash my hands because it reeked so bad.
Smelled like
So,
feet.
not my cup of tea.
Sounds about right.
I can't imagine how someone could down so much of that stuff so quickly, but anyway, it
Sounds
is.
like prune juice.
It
In
sounds
description, the way that
no.
people describe it,
Prune juice.
sounds-
Prune juice is way
Prune
better.
It's good.
Prune juice is better.
Oh yeah.
This is like fermented. It actually is fermented, but it's sour and
I know. I'm seeing more like the aura around it. Right?
Oh,
People say
the
it
way-
tastes disgusting, smells
Oh.
terrible, and it kind of like it's used for like health
Oh, yeah.
related things in
Yeah.
order to like clear out your system pretty much. Sounds a lot like prune juice, which, in my opinion, is absolutely disgusting.
Yeah. I mean, the best way I could describe it is like Austin said, it basically tastes like feet. Like the smell of feet,
Jeez.
but it tastes that way.
Yep.
So anyway, that's enough about that. We're not going to talk about Michael Floyd for a while unless it's hopefully some positive training camp updates of him looking like a stud like we all expect him to look. So moving on, I want to talk about hope because I don't know, man. I felt myself the other day, and maybe it was when Austin was here in Vegas because he visited recently and we hung out, and we were talking about the Vikings, and I felt myself getting hopeful and optimistic looking at the season, and then I kind of have to think to myself, like, dial it back a little bit because, you know, we are Vikings fans and we can't allow ourselves to get too optimistic. But then then there's a couple other things that happened. So I don't know if you guys saw, but like Everson Griffin was giving Jimmy Butler, new Timberwolves player, the tour of the stadium, and he was like, so the exact quote was, "We're gonna win this Super Bowl too. We're gonna talk it into existence, baby." So,
That sounds like Everson.
yeah. So Everson's on the Super Bowl homeboy train, and then also Drew's got this new series coming to VT soon. I don't remember what's the exact name of the series, Drew. Do you have that yet?
It's it's the skull scale. That's what
Right.
it is. And basically, it's going to be a meter of which to measure optimism the Vikings fans should be feeling, or at least that I will be feeling.
Right. So we're going to do weekly updates starting pretty soon. We're going to update that through training camp, where I'm sure towards the end of that, the skull scale will be reaching a astronomical
Hopefully.
level. And then it'll probably be really good through the first half of the season and then come plummeting down somewhere.
If it's anything like last season, yeah.
Right. So anyway, so I just want to talk, like, what is your guys' level of optimism going into this season? Are you guys feeling pretty optimistic? And I wanted to use the skull scale as like a meter to kind of gauge where everyone's at. So I think we can start. And by the way, we just lost BJ. He's dealing with some technical issues, so he may be back in. But I think the best way to do it is like going from 1 to 10 on the skull scale, as we're calling it. So let's just start, Sean. I want to start with you, and then I also want to get a record prediction as we're going around. I know that record, you know, it's not like we're writing in stone or anything. We'll probably do these a couple times as things change. But like, where are you kind of leaning right now as far as record prediction and optimism?
Like you said, I'm cautiously optimistic as always. But rethinking of the draft, you know, didn't really like it at first, you know, based off who the Vikings took early, I guess. But the more I look at the draft, I really, really like it. The roster competition, I believe, will kind of get rid of some players that I think the Vikings may benefit from losing in a way. Your Willie Beavers, your guys like that. So I feel the same way you do. I feel optimistic that the Vikings can go 9-7, looking at their schedule.
That's your optimistic
better.
record?
That is my cautiously optimistic.
That's your cautiously optimistic record.
Yes.
Okay.
Fair. That's fair.
I am a
Okay.
Minnesota-born Vikings fan.
Yeah, so you know. You know. Okay, what about you, Drew?
I'm kind of in the same boat as Sean here. I'm trying not to get too optimistic. We saw last year what can happen when you do get too optimistic. But I think there's a lot to like what the Vikings have done this offseason. Added a bunch of pieces on the offensive line. They went out and got obviously a top 15 talent in the NFL draft in Dalvin Cook. So, but there are still a bunch of kinks that need to be worked out here. So, I mean, if I was going to give it on the scale, I think right now I'm like 6.5 right now. But I mean, as we get through training camp, I'm sure that's going to get raised a little bit. But that's where I'm at right now.
So Sean just backtracked and gave himself a 7.
Yep.
So Drew, like, what has you cautious about your optimism? I mean, is it anything outside of just history, I guess? Is there anything specific about this team that has you cautious, or?
Well, I think part of it is the way that the team finished last year, but I think basically two things right now are kind of, screaming at me. One is the offensive line. I like the additions, but there's still a lot of questions with Riley Reif and Mike Remmers on the bookends. And then the slot cornerback with Mackenzie Alexander, given how much that position is used. Or I guess maybe it's not Mackenzie Alexander, maybe someone else wins that job, but whoever it is, the fact that it's not Captain Munnerlyn, I'm not going to completely trust whoever that is yet. And I'd like to see more proof of reliable play first before I get any more optimistic than where I'm at.
Austin, my optimism guy.
Mr. Optimism. You know what? Give me a 9 because it's early.
On the skull scale, a 9 or 9 wins?
No, skull scale 9. Give me a 9.
All right.
I think the Vikings have a roster that can compete with anyone in the NFL. I think they're going to be better than they were last year. I don't think 5-0 was a fluke to start. And I'm probably being too optimistic, but we don't have a whole lot to talk about. And when that happens, you kind of get the thinking going. You're like, you know what? Why can't they win 8 games to start? But if I am going to be cautious, it's not about the offensive line. It's not about Sam Bradford. I don't really think there's a lot of holes on the roster to fill. It's about the schedule. I think the schedule to open up is tough. The Saints, the Steelers, the Buccaneers, the Lions. I mean, those are all games. I don't know about the Saints, but those are all games.
Sorry, go ahead.
What was that?
No, go ahead. I'm sorry. My bad.
No, I was going to say those are all games that could go either way. I mean, the Vikings could start 1-3, beat the Saints, then lose to the Steelers, the Bucs, and the Lions. Like, I could see that happening. I think the team's better than that. I don't think they're going to get caught in a hole. But that's a really tough open.
Yeah.
You play the Saints on Monday night, then you go to Pittsburgh, and you're playing the Bucs and the Lions at home. But after that, I think you've got some breathing room with the Bears, the Packers, who are going to be good, the Ravens in London with the Browns. So if I'm looking at the schedule, I think early on when it came out before the whole offseason started, I said they were going to go 10-6, and that's probably not as optimistic as a 9 would say, but that feels safe to me. Yeah. And I could see them winning a couple more games than that, but 10-6 is where I'm at.
I think I like how you brought up the Bucs too, kind of because I feel like that's they're
a good team.
Yeah, I mean they're I think probably a few months ago I probably felt a little bit more comfortable about that game, maybe when the schedules first came out, but they're definitely on an upward trend right now, and their offense is starting to look really, really scary. But you know what? I think maybe we match up against them pretty well. Our defense up against some of their receivers.
Oh yeah.
But BJ, are you gonna are you feeling optimistic? You feeling pessimistic? You're muted, bud.
Sorry. I still feel pretty good about this game. I thought that over the course of the offseason, they did a great job to address the needs that they had. Kind of singing the same song that I have been for the last couple months here. They addressed the running game with a spectacular rusher and Cook and Latavius Murray for backup. You got 2 good bookends that are going to be far superior to Jeremiah Stills and TJ Clemmings, barring injury to those guys. The depth is a concern for sure. I think cautiously optimistic is, it's not only a term best associated with Vikings fans, but it's probably the best way to feel up until the very first week of play actually begins, because what we know can happen even on a misfit drill at the end of training camp. So I feel pretty good about this team moving forward. I think 10-6 is good, just like Austin said. But like Drew said, the depth is a concern. Mackenzie Alexander will be a concern until proven otherwise. And I think 10-6 is probably a good bar to set at this point.
I feel like you guys are really jaded right now with this team. Like, I was not expecting this sort of realism. I don't know. And maybe it's because I'm at a completely different spot, because I don't know, like, obviously there's a lot of like, if this happens, then this prediction goes out the window. But I feel like I look at this roster right now and I see a Super Bowl caliber team. I think
spicy take.
Is it a spicy take though?
Spicy take.
I mean,
I think dark horse Super Bowl caliber is fair.
And don't you guys think it plays into it, the Super Bowl being in Minnesota a little bit too? Like, don't you think that kind of lights a fire under a team a little bit more? Huh?
That whole thing's being overplayed, I think.
You think being overplayed? Being overplayed in what sense? Because I haven't seen a lot of people say that they're going to make it because it's in Minnesota. I've seen a lot of people say, wouldn't it be awesome if they made it because it's in Minnesota?
I get it. That's different, I guess. But
I'm thinking, like, from a player's perspective, I mean, you could see the excitement on Everson Griffin walking through the stadium with Jimmy Butler.
Well, he's excited about, like, a chocolate chip cookie. Like,
Everson Griffin does get excited about a lot of things. He does seem like a pretty easily excited person. But I don't know, man. Like, I think if the offensive line holds up, and obviously we don't have any catastrophic injuries to any key personnel, I honestly think this is a Super Bowl caliber team. I look around the NFC, and I think we're going to be better than we were last year for a lot of the reasons you guys have said, especially on the offense with Dalvin Cook at running back and some of the flexibility we're going to have there with Michael Floyd and Treadwell hopefully taking the next step. And I see not a lot of teams in the NFC that can compete with this team if they're firing on all cylinders. So. Anyway, speaking of Super Bowl, just to wrap up, I wanted to ask you guys percentage chance the Vikings make a Super Bowl this year. You can give it to me as a percentage, or you can give it to me as like odds. Sean, do you got a percentage for me?
I saw the early odds for the Vikings are about 25-1, and I'm in that same boat.
Okay.
Right there, I think it's fair.
Okay. What about you, Drew?
I like that. You
guys can't just go with the odds makers.
Well, okay. I'll go with percentage.
And you can't say 20. You can't say 20.
Well, is this to win the NFC or to win the Super Bowl?
Well, to go to the Super Bowl. Let's just say to go to the Super Bowl.
Okay, that okay. I would say 7% chance.
7?
That they win the NFC.
I'm pretty sure that's just 25-1.
Is it?
Just a 7%. So like 7 single digit.
Yeah.
Oh man.
1 to 25. 25-1 is 4%.
Is that low?
It's actually lower than 25-1, but yeah.
I think that's pretty low.
It's like 30-1.
Well,
I think. Yeah,
that's just the percentage that came off my head. Like, I feel like I was gonna say 4 or 3% at first, to win the Super Bowl, which I guess makes sense. So.
All right, go ahead, Austin.
I don't know. I don't gamble or play the odds.
Okay, so just give me a percentage chance. Like a.
Jeez, I don't know. 12.
12%.
I'm just throwing that out there.
That's not that much higher than mine.
Yes, it is. It's way higher than yours.
You're gonna drill me for saying 7%.
It's
way 12.
That's almost double.
That's way higher than yours, Drew. That's 8-1.
I like 8-1. I think 8-1 is possible.
All right, BJ. Deep in thought down there.
I probably wouldn't go any higher than 10-1. I think that Sean's pretty close at 25-1. I think I feel very safe making a bet at 15-1. This is to make the Super Bowl, right? Just to get to the get to the game.
Get to the game.
Because I feel like the Patriots are so good right now that betting the odds to win the actual Super Bowl are so much higher than just to win the NFC. I think that the Vikings could somehow find a way to winning the NFC North, which would give them an opening round home game. I can see them winning one game for sure. I think they're one of the top teams. So if we really kind of go through this kind of meticulously, I think that probably 12 to 15% sounds pretty fair. And if they get a couple of good bounces, like let's say, I don't know, like what happened last year with Oakland when Derek Carr went down and their Super Bowl dreams went to hell. Something, if that kind of thing doesn't happen to us, and that happens to like the Vikings' opponent, for example, if they luck into something like that, which they never do, then those odds go up. But I just think to be safe, about 15% is about as high the probabilities I'd go right now. I'm
gonna go 20. I'm gonna go 20%, 5-1. I don't even care. I don't know, man. I feel it. I feel it this year. It's destiny.
Dallas.
I'm totally setting myself up. I'm totally setting myself up.
Atlanta. Seattle.
Atlanta, nope.
Luke, Atlanta's going to be a fluke this year.
Nope.
Based off what?
Gut feeling?
Yeah. Gut.
Oh, okay. All right.
I don't know.
Just checking.
I agree with Awesome there. I mean, I don't know about the Falcons. I could totally see them falling back down to earth. But hold on. So hold on. You had a list going, Drew, real quick. So who was on your list right now as teams?
Well, I just mentioned 4 teams that are substantially ahead of the Vikings right now. I mean,
who are they?
Dallas, Green Bay, Atlanta, and Seattle.
We're going to put Dallas substantially ahead of the Vikings?
Yes.
We came within like a few plays of beating them last year.
Yeah. What was the final record? Like 13-3 or something?
Yeah.
They dominated the league last year.
You think roster to roster they're substantially ahead? Because I think the offensive line is ahead of everybody, but defense,
right?
No,
that matters a lot more. I mean, that carries way more weight to me. Like,
well, it does, but as a whole, I don't think the roster is substantially better than. I think if the Vikings were to play them again, it would be just as competitive of a game.
Probably. I mean,
think about our
defensively,
offensive
Dallas
line
isn't
at
anything
that
that
point.
special to me. It's just the offense is so well run, and they have. I mean, you combine that offensive line with Ezekiel Elliott.
Yeah. Oh, I agree.
Think about
every time.
our O-line at that point.
I know.
At that point in the season, Mike Zimmer wasn't even on the field. I mean, we hung.
I'm aware of what the situation was. I'm just saying.
Okay, well, I guess I'm just pointing out all that stuff as my reasoning as why they're not substantially better. In fact, I would put those two teams right next to each other. I think I'd still probably put Green Bay ahead of us. I wouldn't put Atlanta ahead of us, and I would put Seattle ahead of us. And I don't think I'd put any other teams ahead of us in the NFC.
The Bucs are probably right
Bucs are
below
good.
us.
Yeah, they need to prove it first.
The Giants too. The Giants.
I forgot about the Giants. Yeah.
I hope we get to the
Ellison.
NFC Championship game and get to play the Giants because I would love for that Vikings
what's gonna
defense
happen?
to feast on Eli.
NFC Championship at US Bank Stadium. Seahawks game-winning field goal by Blair Walsh to win. Walk
Oh
off.
yeah, oh for sure, that's gonna happen. I'd also be fine with a reverse 41 donut with the Giants too.
Oh yeah.
That'd be fun.
At US Bank Stadium. But all right, well, I guess we're gonna move on. I don't know. You guys.
This is a shock though. How optimistic you were today. Usually the other
I'm
way.
generally pretty pessimistic. I don't know. I think I'm in that part of the season where I'm like ready for football.
Yeah.
And nothing's going to bring me down until there's some sort of catastrophic injury in training camp or something, and then I'll probably spend a week in solitude crying in a corner. But until that point, man, it's all about Super Bowl, homeboy. I'm right there. All right. So next, we're going to talk about the riskiest offseason move. So this was something, thanks, BJ, for pointing this out. Good idea. And actually, I guess we got to give a shout out to Bleacher Report because it was actually an article by Brad Gagnon that kind of sparked this idea. Basically, he went through the NFL and tried to identify each team's riskiest move. So I'll save what the article said was the Vikings' riskiest move until later if we haven't, someone hasn't already brought it up as one of their own. But I wanted to pose to you guys what you all thought the riskiest move of the offseason was for the Vikings. And I'm going to start with BJ since we finished last with him on the last question.
Well, there's obviously a handful of them. Obviously, Dalvin Cook's off-field issue presents a huge kind of dilemma that if it doesn't pan out, then upper management and co is going to take heat, especially if he does something stupid off the field. So that's a risk in itself. I think Michael Floyd is the pretty clear-cut one at this point, given that it already came back not great, given what has happened since the Vikings brought him in. Between those two, I think you got to lean Mike Floyd right now just because of the situation that has happened since. I mean, I personally didn't believe that he was going to come in and be a problem, but he clearly has. I mean, the Michael Floyd kind of investigation has been one of the largest headlines of the offseason, and that's negative attention that he's drawing to Minnesota. So I think that inherently he's winning this, debate for himself at this point. I think there's no – Dalvin Cook hasn't done anything stupid yet, so there's no running mate because he's already kind of put himself higher on the ledger. So I guess Michael Floyd, unfortunately.
So that's kind of surprising to me. One, because I don't know. I know you're close with Floyd, and I didn't think that would be your choice because Austin pointed it out at the beginning before the episode. He was saying that was his. Sorry, Austin, to ruin yours.
That's all right.
But I was like, get prepared to debate that one because personally, I don't think that's the riskiest move, and I thought you wouldn't think it was either. And so to hear you say that's the riskiest move, I'm kind of surprised.
I think that if we asked this question, pre-Kombucha Gate, I wouldn't have answered as so. I would have probably gone with Dalvin Cook or potentially the combination of bringing in Riley Reif and allowing Matt Khalil to leave because I think there is potential for Khalil to be a very good player alongside his brother in Carolina. I think that's a perfect disaster for Vikings Twitter right there when he starts playing well and Riley Reif starts playing poorly. So there is that. That's another thing that crossed my mind. But I think that simply what has happened this offseason, the developments of it with Michael Floyd, I mean, it's clearly risky now, right? I mean, the risk has been embodied. It has a persona, and it's Michael Floyd right now. So I think that's why I kind of have to go that way.
So I told Austin that was at the bottom of my list just because I don't feel like there was any risk involved. I mean,
that's my thought.
I mean, outside of
that's fair.
Outside of, like you said, negative press, which does suck, but I also don't think it really reflects on the Vikings that bad because I think people know that they were just throwing this guy a bone and they don't have a lot invested in him. And so if it blows up, it's not like this explosion that's going to also hit the team. I think it's more of a personal explosion that's just going to blow up in Floyd's face.
Yeah.
So
the ripple effect from Dalvin Cook would be a lot more significant, right?
I just don't think the investment is big enough to warrant it being the riskiest.
That's fair. I respect the hell out of that opinion.
But I mean,
I think you're on the money with that, honestly, because Michael Floyd wasn't there. I mean, there's no guaranteed money in the contract, right? It was all escalators. Right. Everything was based on his performance. So to your point, Brett, there is no real risk associated with it. The only difference here that I think that kind of supports Austin, and I believe Austin's point, because I think he was going to argue the same thing as me, is the simple fact that he has proved to be a risk already. That's the real thing that in my mind, that's really all I need because Dalvin Cook has been, an amazing citizen since joining the Vikings.
Yeah, Floyd is the.
But as soon as if he blows up, I mean, immediately we know what the bigger risk was.
Floyd is the risk that is already kind of blown up, basically, which I think is why it probably becomes the most obvious first choice. Austin, do you have anything you want to add to that since we kind of...
Well, no, I mean, two things. So the first is I think the team has done a good job of, I know it's been the biggest headline, but I feel like the team's done a really good job of, siloing this off because it's almost to the point where it's been a headline so much that no one's really talking about it anymore. It's like, okay,
no one cares.
I'm sick of it. Who gives a crap, right? So we're at the point where people are just waiting to see what happens with the guy because taking your points and kind of looking back at it, Michael Floyd was kind of a forgotten man when the offseason started anyway. So signing him really wasn't a risk so much as it was taking a flyer on a guy, and if it didn't work out, it didn't work out. Like you said, Brett, the only risk I really see with it was bad press, and they've done a good job of kind of negating that.
I would say now, though, if I may interrupt, just that I think the risk does go up quite a bit now that they've defended him like this.
Yeah, I was just going to say that.
Yeah.
Here we are talking about Michael Floyd again, and we said we were past him.
I was going to pivot. I was going to pivot to something else. So
no, it's okay.
My question to you, Brett, was: is this the riskiest move or the riskiest acquisition?
Well, the way the article phrased it was the riskiest move, but I was kind of asking myself beforehand, can a non-move be a risky move? You know what I mean? So, the decision to not do something, is that also a risky move? And the thing that the article chose was actually a negative as opposed to a positive to the team, a negative risk. Go ahead, Austin.
I was going to say, and I might be stealing Drew's here, and if so, I'm going to pass the ball to him, is letting Captain Munnerlyn walk. No?
That's part of it. I think basically mine is trusting your first two draft picks from 2016. So you're trusting Treadwell to take that wide receiver 3 role, and you're trusting, at this point, Mackenzie Alexander to be the slot corner. I think not adding some insurance there. I mean, I guess Floyd kind of was for Treadwell as kind of that flyer, but I think just inherently trusting those guys to be, to to bring their A game essentially in those starting roles, because it's big time now. They got to really fill in their role. I think that for me is kind of the riskiest one, because if they don't pan out, one, it kind of proves that they missed on those picks. Mm-hmm. And then two, those are important positions, especially slot corner. That if you're not getting good contributions there, it's going to mess up your defense. So
yeah.
Yeah, sorry, I think we just lost Sean. Maybe he'll be back in a second. I actually didn't even think of that one, so that's a good one, Drew. We'll try and get to Sean's when he comes back. Some of the ones that I thought maybe would be brought up were using the first round pick on Dalvin Cook, or I'm sorry, second round pick on Dalvin Cook, but using their first pick on Dalvin Cook. And then I thought someone would say the Riley Reif thing, rolling the dice with Riley Reif, or maybe just in general not doing enough to address the offensive line would be the riskiest move. I think
Remmers is probably more of a risk, right?
That's what I was thinking.
Remmers is a
look
greater
at the
risk than Reif.
contract.
Yeah.
I still think that there's a higher ceiling with Reif that kind of makes his contract less risky than the contract associated with Remmers, despite it being, I think, $6 million average annual on Remmers and $10 million average annual on Reif. I still think that Remmers is more likely to break down and be an issue than Reif would be. So for that reason, I think Remmers would be, in my mind, is the more risky acquisition of the two bookends.
Yep.
Yeah, I think maybe the what I would say is like the risk overall of not doing enough to address the offensive line. But maybe that's too blanket statement. You know what I mean? Like
maybe offensive tackles in general, not doing enough to address the offensive tackle position. This is something that Drew has harped a lot about on our podcast.
Who is there behind Reif and Remmers right now?
Right. If Reif goes down, we're looking at T.J. Clemmings once again. I mean, it's probably not T.J. Clemmings. Honestly, it's probably Rashad Hill, honestly, on the left side. Probably on the right side, it's more like Jeremiah Searles right now. But either way, if one of those guys goes down, one of those big name acquisitions, they have enough. They didn't shore up the holes with the draft. They didn't get like a backup young gun left tackle that could step in and provide some level of play that could represent potential moving forward. So they didn't do that, and that's risky in itself. Given how many offensive linemen did they draft? They drafted Reif, they drafted Isadora, and then they didn't
draft Reif.
Excuse me, not Reif. I meant Elfline. So they brought in Reif, they brought in Remmers, they drafted Elfline, and they drafted Isadora. So that's 4 offensive linemen when I think we made it pretty clear prior to the draft and prior to free agency that offensive line was definitively the one thing they needed to address. And they basically addressed it with solid players with some potential, with exception to Elfline, who was kind of a top-flight center prospect. That's really the only guy that they addressed it with high-end potential.
Right.
So that's a risk in itself.
And I think, too, we should probably consider the fact that Minnesota is not, a dream free agent destination here either. So you're not going to be able to compete with some of the other teams and getting these big-time free agents. You got the high income tax. You're in the cold weather.
You're at disadvantage
as it is. Yeah.
I mean, who wouldn't choose I mean, generally, from an objective standpoint, who takes Minnesota, Minneapolis, St. Paul over California, Los Angeles area? I think Whitworth probably made the decision pretty clear in that regard.
Yeah. Want to settle his family down. Drew's right. It's not like a hot destination. But then I look at someone like Detroit. What makes Detroit a hot destination for? Didn't they land a bunch of offensive linemen too?
I think Minneapolis is becoming a bigger market.
Yeah.
I think it's slowly getting there, given that the Twin Cities are getting bigger. Obviously, you have teams like the Wild who have consistently been in the postseason. The Twins have a good. Overall, they're known as a team that has 2 World Series championships. They've got a soccer team now that's playing in whatever professional soccer is. I mean, the Vikings are historically a winning franchise despite the lack of Super Bowls. I think it's an attractive destination, but like Drew said, we can't compete with like Dallas or like Big Apple.
I think
there's just nothing the Vikings can do in that regard.
It takes a certain personality, like Alex Boone.
Right.
He was rumored to just. Boom! I want to be in NFC North. I want to play in the Black and Blue division. I want to play for the Vikings. I think it takes that type of personality.
Because the Vikings bring on so many Big Ten players, right? Doesn't it kind of make sense? I think the Pac-12 affinity is kind of interesting. Guys like Eric Kendricks and Anthony Barr coming over from the West Coast. That's interesting to me. But you see so many Big Ten players on the Vikings roster that I think it makes sense that they have kind of that cold weather persona, right? The hard-nosed bruiser type, and that's kind of what the Big Ten is known for, right?
Yeah. Shoot, I forgot what I was going to say. Crap!
Sean's
I
back.
had something good. All right, Sean, stall quick. What was your? I know you were gone for a second. Glad to see that got fixed. What was your riskiest move of the offseason?
Well, I saw you guys. I kind of joined late there, but you talked
It's
about
okay.
offensive line. I thought the move to acquire Mike Remmers and the sizable contract he was given could be looked at as a risky move. What if he just absolutely is terrible at right tackle?
Right.
He's got at least 2 years that he must be under contract, basically, with a dead cap amongst his contract entails. So that can be looked at as a risky move, I believe.
Yeah, I think that was kind of what I was. I guess that was my own personal riskiest move. I remember, Drew. Okay, you brought up Alex Boone. I wanted to ask you guys, 2020 vision, looking back. And I don't know if someone can pull up the numbers right now, but I feel like last offseason we were going after Kalichi Osemele, and Alex Boone was like our second option when we missed out on Osemele. What did the contract difference between those two end up being? Because obviously Osemele has blown Boone out of the water. He's probably top 3 guards in the NFL right now. I don't know if that's a hot take or not, but I feel like I consistently see him at the top of everyone's rankings. I don't know where he fell in NFL Top 100, but I feel like I was looking at that before the show too, and I thought I saw him pretty high up there. But I feel like we didn't pay a whole lot less for Alex Boone, did we? Does anyone have that number yet?
I do remember that. I think Osemele was deciding between the Vikings and the Raiders, and then I think Spielman kind of caved at $13 million a year or something. Osemele got. I think that was the max.
Obviously, there's a lot
There was a
that
couple
goes
other
on
factors,
behind the
though,
scenes
too.
and stuff. Yeah,
right. There probably was, but
They were chasing Clint Bowling too. That was the guard from Cincinnati Bengals, and I believe he signed a deal that was worth 25 or 26 million average or in total value, which was compared to Osemele was about half, if I remember correctly. I think Osemele signed a contract around 50 million. And so Boone, in my mind, when you look at those 3 options and you look at how much the Vikings paid for Boone, and it's loading on my computer right now, I don't know the exact deal. 4 years, 26.8 for Boone.
that's pretty good.
That deal sounds pretty great, even despite how good Osemele was last season. And we got to keep in mind, he was playing next to Rodney Hudson, who's one of the very best centers in the league last season. Donald Penn as well on the left end. He had perfect continuity, as Drew and I like to say, in terms of playing alongside guys that are going to help increase his performance, where Boone kind of got stuffed between Berger, who obviously is very good, and then a rotating door on the left side, which was a major issue for his game, in my personal opinion.
I'm going to completely backtrack off that statement after looking at the numbers. Never mind. Osemele's contract blows Boone's out of the water. So
it's an offensive tackle contract, as far as I remember, right?
Yeah, I mean it's 5 years, 58 million, 25 and a half guaranteed. Whereas Boone is 4 years, 26, and only 6.5 guaranteed at signing. I mean, you have almost 4 times the guaranteed amount Osemele got. So never mind, that was stupid. I apologize. But anyway, I guess that kind of just stems from my disappointment with Boone's performance. I really hope he bounces back this year.
I think he will. I think that's a good guy to bet on to come back because he has that persona.
Oh, yeah,
kind of
for
that
sure.
baller mentality that he knows he wasn't good enough. And I think a lot of him kind of airing it out in the locker room. Remember last season when he was kind of a loudmouth in the locker room? I think that a lot of that was him just frustrated with his own personal performance.
Yeah.
So I would expect to see a rebound from him. I think if you're betting on any Viking to rebound, Anthony Barr included, Trey Waynes, whoever, I think Boone is probably as good of a bet as anyone.
Sure. Okay, so last thing on this one, the article actually said the riskiest move was not picking up Teddy's 5th-year option. I'm not sure I agree with that because I don't think the team really had any other decision to make.
Yeah, I don't think.
I mean, as the Teddy Bridgewater fan club president, I'm saying that. And also, maybe this person doesn't fully understand the situation the Vikings are in, and the leverage that they potentially still have in this situation, which we've talked about ad nauseum many times previously on this show. But so anyway, that was theirs. I don't know that any of us agree with it. So unless anyone else have it, okay.
Nope.
Moving on, we're gonna get to some Twitter questions real quick. So first comes from Adam West at a West E1. he wants to talk about D-line rotation. So there's kind of 3 questions in this one question. I'll go around the table to BJ, Sean, and Drew. I just picked you guys. Feel happy. So first question, who plays the D-line rotation on 3rd and short? So I guess if you're talking about your front 4, who's in that rotation on 3rd and short, BJ?
I would say probably Brian Robinson on the outside, playing at the 5 on the end, the left side. Everson Griffin on the right side. Linville Joseph up the middle at the nose. And I think the Shamar Stephen, if he makes the roster, he should be next to Linville in that what would be the defensive tackle spot, the 3 technique. But I don't think he'll make the roster, so I think it makes more sense to use a guy like Jaleel Johnson or a guy like Will Sutton who have more meat, more girth to kind of plug up that inherent hole that is created just by 2 bodies next to each other. So I think that's your 3rd and short. Obviously, if it's on the goal line, you're putting 5 guys in the line. I think that Brian Robinson kind of kicks into the inside a little bit. You have Daniil Hunter up on the left side, and you play 2 linebackers set and have them fill the gaps. So I think that makes the most sense right now, but it kind of depends on Shamar Stephen right now.
So I think I understand your reasoning there, but for the people, how come you chose to put in Robeson over Hunter on the base package?
In my opinion, Brian Robinson is a better run defender. He sets the edge better. He has a better idea of just kind of what's going on and where his leverage is. In my opinion, that just comes with the age and experience. The fact that he's played that many more snaps than Daniil Hunter, I just simply trust him to be able to kind of crash in run defense at a quicker, more efficient rate than Daniil Hunter is, because he's primarily a pass rusher learning how to become a run defender at this point in his career, in my opinion.
Okay. And then he asks, obvious passing situation. So, Drew, how about that one?
I think you go Everson Griffin, be on the outside, and then on the inside, I think you put Dayton Jones. And then I think you have Robinson and Daniil Hunter on the other side there. I think that's kind of your base pass rushing group there, because I think all 4 of those guys are kind of known to be prolific pass rushers.
That's kind of a crazy group right there.
Yeah, I mean, you got 4 essentially defensive ends.
You could use Linville there, too, instead of Datone if you wanted.
You could.
I feel like you need some size still, just in case. You know what I mean? They do run the ball. I think, and
well, I mean, it's an obvious passing situation. You know,
yeah,
it's like a 3rd and 9 or something with.
Yeah, okay.
You're clearly running nickel too. You're obviously going to be running nickel, and you're probably going to be running some sort of zone coverage scheme with.
Right.
I can't think of the word right now. But guys to kind of overlap in coverage as guys comes through their zone.
Drew, how many
pattern matching. Sorry. There'd be a pattern matching scheme involved.
Drew, how many obvious passing situations have you seen the Vikings run the ball on? That's all I'll say about that.
Oh, well, you're talking about Norv, right?
Or I feel like any Vikings offensive coordinator, because they've all been horrible,
you're talking about
right? No, I know.
You're talking about Norv handing off to Matt Asiata on 3rd and 13.
Yeah, baby. And then the last situation that Adam had posed was 3rd and 5. However, I guess that would be if you're not quite sure if it's a passing situation or a running situation. So I guess if you want to remain dynamic along the defensive line, Sean, do you have anything? Would you want to propose a rotation for that situation?
Well, it all kind of comes back to the health of Sharif Floyd too, and if he's going to play it all this year. But I do like the Everson Griffin Hunter on the outside, Dayton Jones or Dayton, and then either Linval if you think it's a run play, or somebody like Will Sutton.
Yeah, I think that rotation's probably Griffin, Dayton Jones, Linval, and Daniil Hunter. I think probably.
It kind of depends on your gut instinct too, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, if it's 3rd and 5 and you're facing Dallas, you kind of are under the expectation that they're going to run the ball because it's Ezekiel Elliott and they run the ball about 65% of the time. Whereas if it's 3rd and 5 and you're playing the New Orleans Saints and they've been, for the last 5 years have been throwing the ball at about a 65% rate, I think that's when you trot out the nickel coverage and use kind of Linville Joseph as just a plug up the middle in case of a run.
Yeah.
So bring Barr on the blitz.
Right, exactly. That'd be a good opportunity for the 7-up look. Honestly, that 3rd and 5 situation or that 3rd and deep situation.
Yeah.
It depends. I think that Sean kind of got a screwy question there simply because there is so much inherent value to knowing the situation, and 3rd and 5 is very difficult to just ask randomly of just of any random matchup
Yeah.
simply because certain teams do certain things at a higher rate than others in that situation.
That's why I almost didn't ask that one, because it's kind of. I think it's really trying to get at run situation, pass situation, and then a situation where it's like you got to be prepared.
I mean,
for both, basically.
that one needs more context, I think. So
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so moving on to the next one. This one should be pretty quick. Which do you think we're more likely to see, 2015 Barr or 2016 Barr? This is from Adrian at It's a Drizzle, or It's a Drizzle. I think that's correct. So let's start off with Austin. Austin, which Barr are we seeing this year, 15 or 16 Barr?
I say 15 Barr. I think something was either wrong in terms of him being hurt or playing in a different role. I think he comes back and he plays in 2015 for him. I just can't imagine a player like that's going to kind of keep going on the decline. It doesn't make any sense to me.
Does anyone have a differing opinion on that one?
I'm not as confident in 2015, but if I had to pick one, I'd say it. Yeah, I'd say 2015.
Okay.
I think he was given a lot more responsibilities that we didn't notice at initial glance. And that it took him, it was a re-up of him having to relearn the position just because more responsibilities were given to him, which kind of creates an inherent learning curve, right? So I think for that reason, he spent all of 2016 learning these new responsibilities that he was given as kind of a primary guy on the field, a guy that played about 100% of the snaps. And so for that reason, I think you see him fall off. But at the same time, you could see him get back up to speed now that he's got a full year under that role in his system.
Yeah, that's what's so exciting. I mean, like we were just talking about the defensive line, all those rotations. We haven't even thrown in the complexity of the linebacker rotations and how they play into that, and how Harrison Smith plays into that. That's why the defense is so much fun to watch. But okay, so I'm going to get to the last question really quick. So this is from our buddy Hoodie. He asks, what are realistic numbers for each wide receiver this year? So catches, reception yards, and touchdowns. I'm not going to have everyone give their opinion on every receiver because we'll be here in another hour. So I'm just going to assign them. So BJ, do you want to start off with wide receiver number 1, Stephon Diggs?
Sure. I would say that Diggs is probably looking at. I'm projecting health here as well. I don't see
Let's
Stephon
assume
Diggs playing
that
a
for
full
everyone. Yeah. Sorry.
Right. I think that Stephon Diggs will find his way out of a couple of games again this year, play 14 games-ish, something like that, rack up about 90 catches for about 920 yards and 3 or 4 touchdowns.
I'm sorry. Say that one more time, DJ.
About 90 catches, about 900 to 950 yards and 3 or 4 touchdowns for Stephon Diggs.
Can't give him those 50 more yards to break
No,
it down?
I can't do it.
You're trying to keep him hungry in case he's watching?
If you played 16 games, I'd have no problem bumping that up to 110 catches, 1,100 yards, and like 5 touchdowns.
Let's assume 16 games.
I would say that he crosses 100 catches.
Okay.
Probably 100, let's say 102, barely gets over the mark. 1,050 receiving yards, and again, 4 or 5 touchdowns. Low touchdown total for Diggs.
Okay, cool. I'm going to go to Drew next. Drew, Thielen prediction.
I was hoping I get Thielen.
Yeah.
I have high expectations for I have high expectations for the Vikings offense in general, as long as the offensive line is better than last year. I think another year under Pat Shurmur, a full offseason under Pat Shurmur will be good. And obviously Thielen and Bradford really formed a nice rapport towards the end of the season. So I'm thinking for Thielen, about we'll go 90 catches and we'll go 1,200 yards and 7 touchdowns.
Wow.
A heck of a season.
There we go. Are you sure your
Spicy.
skull scale was a 7?
6.5 actually.
6.5. You don't want to bump that up a point or two? Thielen's going for 1,200 yards. You might have a better record than the one you predicted, man. All right. Next, I'm going to give. Let's see. Oops, I lost. I don't know why I need this, but I have the depth chart in front of me. Like I don't know. Let's go with Treadwell for. Let's go Sean Treadwell.
Treadwell. I'm a big fan of Treadwell. I think he has a
1,000 yards
breakout season. I'm not going to be as optimistic as Drew was with his Thielen projection, but I'll go 50 catches, 750 yards, 6 TDs for Treadwell.
Okay,
That's more optimistic than mine, isn't it?
I think the catch numbers are optimistic, but I think that what he said with touchdowns might be right on the money.
Yeah.
I could easily see Treadwell on the opposite.
As a red zone guy, yeah.
Yeah. I think the catch total for Treadwell would be lower, which would inherently lower the yards. This is just my subjective opinion, by the way. I just think that that the guys that are going to be throwing up the big catch numbers are going to be Diggs and Thielen, and then the guys like Floyd and Treadwell and like Bucky Hodges, Kyle Rudolph are going to be the guys that rack up the touchdown numbers. In my opinion, that's what I think.
Okay.
He's gaining Bradford's trust. I see them developing a rapport throughout the year.
So I want to keep
If
track.
that happens, he could be right on too.
BJ, I'm just trying to keep track on totals. So you had Diggs at 1,100, right?
For 16.
You should say 11, I guess. Say 1,100, sure.
And
1,100.
And Drew, you had 12 on Thielen, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm just adding these.
Feel good about that.
750 for Treadwell. That's got us at about 3,000 yards, and you got to account for Rudolph, Floyd.
Don't give away the total. I'm going to give the total.
I'm not. I'm just counting it up in my head. Sorry,
Austin.
I'm thinking out loud.
7,000 yards for Bradford.
Austin, do you want Jarius Wright or Michael Floyd? I'm only going to do 4, so...
I want Kyle Rudolph instead.
I think you got to account for Kyle Rudolph.
I
in this
know.
scenario.
All right, so
He's
fine.
going to catch more balls than both those guys combined.
Fine. We'll let you have Kyle Rudolph, and then we'll give BJ Floyd to finish it up, and that'll give us a pretty good view of the total. So go ahead with Rudolph.
Okay, well, I think Rudolph's going to continue playing as well as he did last year, so let's go. I can see him catching 70 balls, 75 balls. Let's go with 75. I think he's going to catch a ton of balls this year. Let's go 750, so he averages 10 yards a catch. I don't see that being unrealistic. And let's go 4 touchdowns.
Ooh, only 4 touchdowns?
Yeah.
So basically...
Yeah, what? 8 last year?
I think Treadwell's going to hawk some touchdowns away from him.
Well, you kind of have
Man,
him
you guys
going
really like
backwards
Treadwell.
across the board, which and that may not be a slight at Rudolph. That might just mean that people are stepping up in other ways. Like you said, Treadwell is at the table now. Because last year he was at 83 receptions, 840 yards, and 7 touchdowns.
Yeah, so I don't... It's almost in context. I don't see it as that much of a slide. I know the numbers are down across the board. I don't think 4 touchdowns is terrible. I just think other guys are going to catch balls. Now you've got to think about Dalvin Cook, Treadwell, Jerick McKinnon lining up in the slot. You got to think about Bucky Hodges potentially playing a role. So maybe he doesn't catch as many touchdowns, but I think he's still going to be important, at least in the middle of the field.
Yeah. Okay. And then, I'm sorry, real quick, Austin, your yardage was what for Rudolph?
750.
750. Okay. And then BJ, close us out with Floyd.
I mean, based off the numbers we've already given, no. Okay. 250, 4 touchdowns, 25 receptions.
Okay, so 250 yards.
Because the thing about this projection right now is that Michael Floyd would hypothetically take away from Treadwell. Diggs would hypothetically take away from Thielen and vice versa. Kyle Rudolph is really the only sure thing, in my opinion, to for sure bring in 60 catches for 750 yards and like 5 or 6 touchdowns. The other two, like the dynamic between Diggs and Thielen throws their numbers askew, right? There's probably going to be about 180 catches and 2,000 yards between those two guys, I would assume. And then I would assume that between Treadwell and Floyd, that it's going to be about 6 touchdowns between those two guys. So how those are diversified, I don't know.
No, I understand. That makes complete sense. And if
I'm speaking logically here. I'm not trying to undermine the thing that we're going on here. I'm just working through this in my head alongside this.
And that's what I was going to say is, like, as an individual, if you weren't predicting all these guys, you would have to look at, let's say 4,000 yards and how you're going to divvy that up amongst the players.
Right.
But this one, I just wanted to see, like, everyone's ideal, prospects for these guys individually, and then kind of add them up and see where that gets us. So you said 250 for Floyd?
Yeah, go. Give him even 300. I'm not driving.
Okay, cool. So that puts us at 4,100 yards total for those 5 guys.
You got it.
Which is probably a little optimistic because you got to throw in some of
these.
these other guys, And
How many yards did you say, Brett?
4,100.
Well, that's not bad. I can see.
Yeah, but
I can see that.
But we got some other guys, right? Like that are going to take away a little bit. So
The running backs.
Yeah, I think we've talked about it before, but I think the running backs will probably play a bigger role this year, and I would expect them to take a decent chunk of that. But no, I feel like that was pretty close. I think you're always kind of shooting for that 4,000 mark. What was Bradford at last year?
38 or 3,900.
39.
3,900.
He would have hit 4,000 had he played 16 games at his pace.
So
Yeah, that's true.
we're all expecting 4,000 yards, probably, right?
I think the bar should be 3,800 if he plays 16 games. He shouldn't throw for less than 3,800 if he plays 16.
Yeah.
And if he has a good season, I think that 42 or 43 isn't completely out of the it would be unlikely. I think would be if we're setting up odds once again. It'd be a low percentage that he gets that high, but I'm concerned with all these weapons. Why can't Sam Bradford throw for 4,200 yards?
Yeah.
He's got the skill. He's got the talent.
I was going to say, I can give you one reason.
That's really the only reason. Honestly, I mean, he's got the talent. He's a number one pick for a reason. He's got the cerebral mind to go through his reads and hit the correct receiver to accumulate yards. I mean, I think he's probably in the right system, too, for his skill set.
Yeah.
I think the potential could be very high for Sam Bradford. I think that our inherent Teddy bias kind of hurts our projections of Sam Bradford because we all think we still – I'll admit it, I still love Teddy Bridgewater, so part of me kind of allows that to affect my opinion of Sam Bradford. So I think that as a collective fan base, I think that we might be projecting Sam Bradford too low just because of our Teddy bias, which should really be a term at this point, by the way. In the Vikings dictionary, Teddy bias is definitely a term at this point.
I like it.
Yep. And one major factor that you can't forget about, too, if the Vikings have a more balanced running game, that's going to create a more balanced offense.
And we don't really know, right? I mean, we've talked about that on the show before. Is this going to be a run-first offense? Is this going to be a pass-first offense? I don't think any of us really know. And I don't know that Dalvin Cook adding him really answers that question because he's so dynamic. You could see it going either way, So, anyway, that's just my opinion. We got to wrap this thing up. We're going to close out with a little bit of fun like we did last time. And since it's the 4th of July, we're going to talk about pie. So I want to go around the table to wrap this thing out and get everyone's favorite pie and everyone's least favorite pie. And I'm hoping that the least favorite pie segment causes a fight between some of you guys because I know everyone can get real passionate about their pies. So let's start with Sean. Sean, what's your favorite type of pie, man?
So down in Mankato, for those of you who go to Mankato for training camp, just outside of Mankato, there's a dam called the Rapidan Dam. And there's a dam store there that's got the best oatmeal raisin pie in the world.
What?
I didn't even know that was the pie flavor, oatmeal raisin. And I tried it, and it was unbelievably good. So if you guys have not tried oatmeal raisin, I highly suggest it.
Okay, so is that just like you got the crust?
I didn't even know that existed.
Yeah, you got the crust, just like a regular pie, and then you just got oatmeal inside of it?
I don't even know how it's made. You got to try it out for yourself. But it's like almost
I don't know
like
that it's offered anywhere else other than this obscure little dam store you're talking about.
I've seen it around. I guarantee you can find it.
Okay, I'm gonna Google it. What's your least favorite pie?
Apple. I cannot stand apple pie.
Take.
Okay, well, I'm glad I see some nodding heads, including mine, because, apple pie is garbage. Most overrated pie ever. Austin, go ahead and tell us your favorite pie is apple pie.
Okay, favorite pie
from the table.
Favorite pie is key lime pie. Graham cracker crust, key lime, some meringue. It's delicious. Least favorite pie is the other Thanksgiving favorite, pumpkin. I think pumpkin pie is some of the worst pie around.
I can get
why.
All right, there we go.
Well, but Sean asked why though.
Why?
I just think it's. I don't know. I'd rather eat an apple pie than a pumpkin pie. I like the chunks of apple. I like the thick crust. Pumpkin pie is just kind of just mush. I'd rather go apple.
I get what you're saying. It is it can be just kind of mushy.
Yeah.
If it's not done right too. Drew, don't mute yourself. I'm coming to you next.
I don't eat pie, so I don't have a favorite. I don't have a least.
Pizza pie.
I'll remute myself and
pizza
leave
pie?
the conversation.
You say pizza
Hey, it's
pie?
kind of a pie. It's kind of a pie.
You really
if you
just
think
don't
about
like pie? No pie.
I just don't eat pie. It's principle now. I don't eat Skittles. I don't eat Starburst. I don't eat pie. So
Trifecta.
it's just I made it this far in my life without it. Like, why?
Do you have
why
a
mix
type
it
of
up?
pie that's like, I definitely don't eat that pie? Like,
No,
no?
no, I just don't eat pie.
Screw pie.
So all of them, I guess, would be the answer to that one.
Okay.
And now he mutes again.
That's weird. BJ?
I'm not a pie guy either, honestly. But I have tasted enough different types of pie to have an opinion on this, as I have an opinion on most things. Apple is the most overrated pie by a wide margin. People talk it up, and I think people like apple a lot simply because it's so easy to make relative to other pies. It's an easy recipe compared to a lot of the more elaborate pies. In my personal opinion, and when I've been building pies in the past here, that was one of the easier ones for me to make. So I think that's why people think it gets too big. It's too big. That's just what happens. Once you hit the top, you can only go down. That's where apple pie is at for me. I think that the worst pie that I have ever personally indulged was cranberry pie, simply because cranberries don't taste good to me. The only reason I ever eat cranberries is to detox and kind of to feel less hungover, so I don't understand why I would eat it as a treat. And then the final one, the one that I actually kind of like, is French silk pie. I think that that's also very overrated as well. But again, I'm not a pie guy. If I had to choose one, if I had to pick one, it'd be French silk. And if you want to count cheesecake as a pie, because it's technically not a cake, it's actually technically pie, that is my personal favorite dessert and the one dessert item that I will ever order off the menu.
French silk is basically just chocolate, right?
Right.
Like a chocolate
pie?
Yeah.
Okay, I just want to make sure.
With a little bit with some cream on the top, if you like whipped cream, and then some people will sprinkle like strawberries or something else. I don't know. Again, I'm not a big pie
guy. So last year I made an apple pie from scratch.
And?
This is
not a great experience.
This is why I hate apple pie so much, and I have to disagree with you on the easiness of making apple pie. When you made
relative to other pies, though?
When you made that apple pie, did you peel all the apples?
I did not. No, I did not.
I freaking made the crust from scratch. I peeled,
I did that.
I peeled about, it had to have been like 100 apples into this freaking pie.
I just had like a slicer, like a thing where you just literally just put it in a machine.
But didn't you have to peel them?
No, haven't you ever seen one of those machines where like it's literally you put the apple in and you just literally slam it down and it cuts it into pieces, and then it'll take.
Takes the skin off.
Yeah. Oh. I mean, if you have like a nice enough one, I was in my dad's kitchen. So.
I did this all with a knife. So and then
I agree with you. Not easy to do.
I did the whole lattice work, like top on it. I was so pumped about this pie. I was taking it to a party. Got there, had my bite of the pie, and was just completely disappointed. I mean, I'd like to think that I'm a pretty good cook, so I don't think it was on me. I was just thinking maybe if I made this apple pie from scratch, it would change my opinion on apple pie. Nope, it just tasted like every other bland apple pie that you can get at the grocery store.
You're missing out.
No, I'm telling you.
Cinnamon.
McDonald's does have good apple pie, though.
My wife loves those. Yeah, she frequents the. I don't want to say my wife frequents McDonald's because she might be watching. She goes to McDonald's occasionally for the apple pies and nothing else. My favorite pie, sweet potato pie, and I think that's probably the most underrated pie. My wife's family's from the South. Her mom makes homemade sweet potato pie. My wife makes homemade sweet potato pie. This is
new to me.
Incredible, I'm telling you. It's kind of like pumpkin, but it's way better than pumpkin pie.
I just learned about 2 new pies on this episode, so that shows you my pie game right there.
Well, oatmeal raisin isn't a pie, and I refuse
I've never heard of an oatmeal raisin pie, but it sounds good.
Just wait. You gotta be blown away.
You're treating it.
I'm gonna look. All right, guys, we're over our time. Thanks everybody for coming to this roundtable. Again, leave a comment. We'll make sure to respond. And please like the video, share with your friends, get the word out there. We appreciate all that. And we'll see everybody next week.
Great.
Thanks, guys. See you later.